Hey, I'm Mike, and welcome to Retro Boost. This is going to be the last, at least the last for now, of my comparisons on RetroTINK devices versus the lower-priced alternatives that are out there on the interwebs to find and use. Part 1, I compared RetroTINK 2X Pro to the AV to HDMI composite 1080p upscaler, showing off what the 2X Pro can do by comparison across different cable formats, composite, S-video, and component, all of which it can take, against the composite scaling that the AV to HDMI does. Part 2, we did the same thing again, but with the 5X Pro instead. And you know what was interesting is that the AV to HDMI in a lot of examples was fine, like perfectly serviceable. If it's all you had, you'd very likely be happy with it. When we upped the cable quality, things definitely shifted in the RetroTINK device's favors, kind of as expected. But for just composite versus composite, the AV to HDMI was pretty good, honestly. I was surprised by it. I was pleasantly surprised by it. As I was editing those videos, though, the thought, kept occurring to me. Well, not editing, as I was doing the capture, because this is early on, the thought occurred to me that I'm going to be showing off like S-video and component, and the AV to HDMI is all composite. And that's not terribly fair. On the other side, I'm trying to also compare what the devices can do as well, and part of the value of the price, the reason for the price of the 2X Pro and the 5X Pro is the variety of inputs that those devices can take, because they do more than just composite. They can accept a variety of things, and those better cabling tiers offer better quality. So then it occurred to me, well, if there's like a million composite to HDMI adapters online, there's got to be component ones too. Enter the Portta. Oh my gosh. Enter the Portta. First try. So I just got this one on a whim after thinking about this. And it turns out that I may have picked the one that actually has somewhat of a following, which is kind of interesting. This one's also pretty unique. I didn't see like any other versions of like this exact kind of design with someone else's name on it, unlike the other one, which you can find many of. There were like an ocean's worth of components to HDMI upscalers, but I only ever saw like one that was exactly like this, unless I just happened to miss it, which is perfectly possible. But as far as I can tell, as the time of filming this, there's only one Portta, which is pretty cool. That's interesting. So we're going to be testing RetroTINK 2X Pro and 5X Pro versus the Portta HDMI upscaling device. Now this takes component video and can give us 1080p output. It can take composite too, because the green's like the multi-in. However, one thing I didn't realize when I bought it and began to do capture work with this guy is that it can only accept 480i signals and above. And I think there have been like multiple versions of this over time. Maybe an older one or like a newer one takes 280 or 240p signals. I don't know, but this one would not take anything except for 480i and higher, which means I can't do Super Nintendo, NES, N64, any of those kind of consoles comparisons with this. It's all going to be 480i or above. So the consoles we are going to compare are going to be the GameCube, the PS2, the Xbox, and the PS3. And since we're doing those consoles, we can do a variety of different resolutions for the console's settings internally. So we'll do 480p output from the GameCube, like progressive scan. We'll do 480i and 480p examples with the PS2. Then we'll do 720p from the Xbox, and then we'll wrap it up with PlayStation 3 kind of as a bonus, because I was just curious to see like what all these resolutions would look like. I wanted to know, hey, is it the higher it goes, the better it looks? This is the general formula here. So we're going to do 1080i and 1080p from the PlayStation 3, comparing that specifically against the RetroTINK 5X Pro. We'll do 720 for the PS3 as well, because the 5X Pro actually can't take 1080p natively, whereas this I think actually did. It did take that. Spoilers. So we'll test all those consoles. So let's get into it. We'll do GameCube first. Again, set to progressive scan. We'll compare the 2X Pro and the 5X Pro. The 2X Pro will be 480i, and the 5X Pro will be set to the progressive scan output. Both using component, all using component, actually. And unlike last time where I bypassed my Extron switch for the AV to HDMI, since we're doing all component, I just decided to just unplug the 5X Pro and plug in those inputs into the Portta. So it's still all the same cable pathways, it's just going through the switch system like normal, as last time it was all bypassed to be as fair as possible to the AV to HDMI. Without any further delay, let's do it. GameCube time.
Sigma Alpha 2 heading due south over the city. We're en route. Everything's a go.
This is Control Tower. We have you on radar. Report cargo status of captured Hedgehog aboard. Over.
That's a 10-4. Cargo secured on board and... What? The
Didn't copy
Hedgehog
that.
is
Over.
gone. He's taken out everyone aboard and...
What's
What
wrong?
in the
Come
world?
in. Over.
Freeze! What do you think you're doing? Get that Hedgehog!
Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies. I'm out of here. I like running better.
Attention all units. Suspect seen heading south. Block all major roads and capture the suspect.
Yes! Just made it.
Sigma Alpha 2 heading due south over the city. We're en route. Everything's a go.
This is Control Tower. We have you on radar. Report cargo status of captured Hedgehog aboard. Over.
That's a 10-4. Cargo secured on board and... What? The
Didn't copy
Hedgehog
that.
is
Over.
gone. He's taken out everyone aboard and...
What's
What
wrong?
in the
Come
world?
in. Over.
Freeze! What do you think you're doing? Get that Hedgehog!
Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies. I'm out of here. I like running better.
Attention all units. Suspect seen heading south. Block all major roads and capture the suspect.
Yes! Just made it.
Okay, so I think the elephant in the room here is this, like, moving pattern that's visible mostly on solid colors, if not always on solid colors of varying intensity from the Portta. I don't know what that is. I tried really hard to research it. I don't know what's going on or what's causing that. I mean, the capture settings for all these devices is the exact same. The settings are all the same. It only happened with the Portta specifically. It doesn't happen on the 2X Pro or 5X Pro. So it's very, very weird. If anyone knows like what it is or how to fix it or what, I'd be very curious to know. Because other than that, the Porta's fine. I mean, like the jaggedness of edges is a little weak. It's definitely obvious that stuff isn't like smooth compared to the 2X or 5X Pro. More so the 5X Pro. The 5X Pro is definitely the king here, at least for me. But the port is pretty good. That line pattern is like the most obvious kind of flaw in my eyes. I can get used to the jaggedness of everything else. Like, that doesn't really bother me too much at all, to be perfectly honest. And the color quality is also quite good. I would go so far as to say that if not for that line pattern, which honestly isn't that bad in the moment-to-moment gameplay, like, it's not really noticeable unless it's like a solid color kind of dominating the screen. The moment-to-moment gameplay is fine, but you take that away, I think that it's better than the 2X Pro's performance is, mainly because it's benefiting from the progressive scan output mode of the GameCube, whereas the 2X Pro, it can't accept 480p or higher native signals. The 2X Pro M can, but that one is at this time discontinued, so hard to recommend something that you can no longer acquire, at least at like a reasonable price, I would assume. It's probably way up there now. The 5X Pro definitely has the better smoothness to it, and obviously doesn't suffer from that line pattern issue. But you can definitely see 5X Pro versus Portta. The 5X Pro is giving us an overall cleaner image, smoother lines and edges, but color quality pretty much identical. So I think it's interesting that if not for that one weird issue, that would be like a definitive win against the 2X Pro if we're going for that kind of perspective. I mean, it's not really win or lose, just kind of a comparison. But honestly, if it's all you had in front of you, though, I mean, that line problem may be something that's correctable with settings. I don't know. It did that for me with this. But even like I said, solid colors is where it's most noticeable. Outside of that, playing Sonic 2 here with the Portta, it's fine. I've really got no other complaints. It did a good job. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. That issue is noticeable and weird, but not like devastating to it. Like, it isn't like I'm like, oh, dude, screw this. It's a quirk, but not a quirk that I think derails the whole experience. And again, this device is like $25, so not bad considering that it allows us to hook up our GameCube to a modern screen. Now, the component cables for the GameCube, that's a whole other problem. Those are not cheap. These are the Retrobit Prism cables. They go for like $60 or higher. If you happen to have the original ones on hand, hey, whatever, hey, cool. However, you would get like the same kind of experience that out of this is what the Wii would offer. So you can kind of think about it like that. So you'd be looking at something pretty close to this with the Wii, although it'd be like 16:9, so a little bit different, I suppose. But GameCube, so far, with component cables, I am satisfied with that. So let's move on to the PlayStation 2. First, we're going to do 480i gameplay with Jak and Daxter, the opening cinematics, which are like kind of like in-engine cutscenes, and then a little bit of the game kind of static afterward, and then same thing, but with Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, that being one of the 480p supported titles. So we'll flip the console into 480p mode. Now, the RetroTINK 2X Pro, as I said, can't do 480p, so that'll be the Jak and Daxter interlaced demo, and then the 5X Pro and the Portta will go side to side for the American Wasteland demo. So let's check out PlayStation 2.
What in green tarnation do you two want?
I was...
Don't tell me! Instead of heeding my wisdom, The two of you went mucking around in the only place that I told you not to go, Misty Island.
That's right. And then...
And, Daxter, you finally took a much-needed bath, but in a bathtub filled with dark eco.
Look, old man, are you gonna keep yapping, or are you gonna help me out of this mess?
I'm gonna keep yapping, because in my professional opinion, the change is an improvement. And besides, I couldn't help you if I wanted to.
What?
There's only one person who has studied Dark Eco long enough to have a chance at returning you to your previous form. Carl Acheron, the Sage. But he lives far to the north. Far, far to the north. Nobody has spoken to him in ages. I would teleport you there, but I can't do that either. None of the three sages that maintain the other teleporter gates have seen fit to turn their ends on for quite a while. The only other way north is by foot through the Fire Canyon, but its volcanic soil is hot enough to melt precursor metal. You can't just walk through it.
But you could fly over it, if you had a zoomer equipped with a heat shield. I just happen to be working on such a thing at this very moment. All I would need is 20 power cells to give it enough energy to withstand the canyon's heat. Isn't that right, Daddy?
Yes, Kira, that might work. But where are a boy and a half going to get 20 power cells?
From the villagers. Most of them have a power cell or two stashed away somewhere. And even if they aren't willing to just give them away, greasing their palms with a few precursor orbs should do the trick. And I bet there are even more of them out in the wilds just waiting for some brave adventurer to find.
Well, we've got the brave adventurer at least.
Brave adventurer? You two couldn't find your way out of the village without training. Before you do anything else, you better go through the warp gate and get some practice on Geyser Rock.
We won't find any more of that dark gooey eco stuff, will we? Cause I'd hate to fall in again and turn into you.
Get in there before I turn you both into ferns. What in green tarnation do you two want?
I was...
Don't tell me. Instead of heeding my wisdom, the two of you went mucking around in the only place that I told you not to go, Misty Island.
That's right. And then...
And, Daxter, you finally took a much-needed bath, but in a bathtub filled with dark eco.
Look, old man, are you gonna keep yapping, or are you gonna help me out of this mess?
I'm gonna keep yapping, because in my professional opinion, the change is an improvement. And besides, I couldn't help you if I wanted to.
What?
There's only one person who has studied Dark Eco long enough to have a chance at returning you to your previous form. Carl Acheron, the Sage. But he lives far to the north. Far, far to the north. Nobody has spoken to him in ages. I would teleport you there, but I can't do that either. None of the three sages that maintain the other teleporter gates have seen fit to turn their ends on for quite a while. The only other way north is by foot through the Fire Canyon, but its volcanic soil is hot enough to melt precursor metal. You can't just walk through it.
But you could fly over it, if you had a zoomer equipped with a heat shield. I just happen to be working on such a thing at this very moment. All I would need is 20 power cells to give it enough energy to withstand the canyon's heat. Isn't that right, Daddy?
Yes, Kira, that might work. But where are a boy and a half going to get 20 power cells?
From the villagers. Most of them have a power cell or two stashed away somewhere. And even if they aren't willing to just give them away, greasing their palms with a few precursor orbs should do the trick. And I bet there are even more of them out in the wilds just waiting for some brave adventurer to find.
Well, we've got the brave adventurer at least.
Brave adventurer? You two couldn't find your way out of the village without training. Before you do anything else, you better go through the warp gate and get some practice on Geyser Rock.
We won't find any more of that dark gooey eco stuff, will we? Cause I'd hate to fall in again and turn into you.
Get in there before I turn you both into ferns.
skateboarding. As they say in acting, break a leg.
Hey, go back to Kentucky, farm boy. Locals only.
Let me guess. You're not from here.
You got a problem with that?
I look that obvious, huh?
Mindy. And yes, you do. Listen, if you want to blend in a little better, you gotta lose that look. Come here. I'll show you a few places you should check out. Okay, here's the deal. In Hollywood, there's a clothing surplus store, a skate shop, and a barber shop. Considering you look like a country bumpkin, you might want to check them out. We'll see after you fix that do and change those clothes.
Forgot to mention before, I was getting sucked into the joy of this being part 3, I guess. So the 5X Pro has been set to 1080p fill for like all this stuff. It's also, for the PS2 part of things, been set to high-res, 858 horizontal sampling, which is one of like usually one of the better ones to use for PlayStation 2 content. So just to throw that out there, because that tends to be like one of the more optimal modes to put the PlayStation 2 in, but it's not perfect, and I'm always changing things. That's what I just did for this demonstration. So looking at PlayStation 2 interlace with Jack and Daxter, 5X Pro, 2X Pro, Portta, disappointed with the 5X Pro and the Portta. I think the unsung hero here is the 2X Pro. I don't know why I've never tried using this sooner, but this video kind of opened my eyes, and it showed me that I think the 2X Pro is probably the best upscaling solution for the PlayStation 2, at least with interlace content. I was very happy with what I saw there. I'm probably going to use that from now on for PlayStation 2 titles. Portta and the 5X Pro were really similar, at least in that particular sampling mode. But one key difference is the motion handling. There's a lot of problems with the Portta with this demo. Maybe it's the interlaced source. I'm not sure, but you can see a lot of, I think it's called combing, a lot of like combing with the image, especially during gameplay. Like, that's almost unplayable. That's really not great. And that's why I wanted to see if it was interlaced or not. So we did the 480p demo. And yeah, the motion is a lot better in that. Don't have any of those same problems with things moving. It's just like the Sonic demo. No issues in gameplay. However, we get like kind of that same pattern is over everything, which it really wasn't noticeable if there at all in the interlaced demonstration. Weird. The 5X Pro isn't perfect though either. The 5X Pro also has like a kind of pattern over it. Instead of it being like a moving diagonal pattern, it's a vertical pattern. And it wasn't just that game. I also played Jak 2 and had the same exact issue with the 5X Pro. So no one really wins for PlayStation 2 except for the 2X Pro, which I quite enjoyed. Very weird how that worked out. But that's just what I like the most. Let's move on to Xbox. We're going to set things to 720p. That includes the RetroTINK device as well. The 5X Pro itself is set to 720p for its output mode. So we'll test everything for 720p out of the Xbox. However, the Portta will be giving us 1080p. So 1080p output from the Portta, 720p from the RetroTINK 5X Pro, and we'll see who looks the best.
Home sweet home. What a dump. At least it has some killer spots. The old pool down by the high school, Scabland, the drainage ditch on the south side of town, and Elm Street, our own little strip of paradise, complete with drug dealers who hate skateboarders. Home sweet home. What a dump. At least it has some killer spots. The old pool down by the high school, Scabland, the drainage ditch on the south side of town, and Elm Street, our own little strip of paradise, complete with drug dealers who hate skateboarders.
Okay, Xbox was interesting. So I actually made a mistake too. I'm just the worst today. This is what happens when I'm filming at night. Normally I film things in the morning. I'm a morning person. I'm filming things at night this time because of how my schedule is worked out this week. So I'm learning the consequences of doing that because clearly my brain is like, you need to stop and you need to go to bed. So that's what's going on with me right now, I guess. I actually had the 5X Pro was set to 1080p fill. That's what it's been for pretty much all of the stuff to keep things as kind of even as possible. But I've thought about 720. What I'm thinking of is an old profile I used to have set for the 5X Pro for Xbox, where I would set it to just 720p mode output. So it's just passing through basically. But it was set to 1080p fill. Since the Portta does 1080p, it makes sense. We're doing 1080p versus 1080p, right? Makes sense. Anyway, that's not what I had set to, the Xbox at least, for the 2X Pro. Because again, the 2X Pro can't accept 480p or higher. So to make this work, I had to turn off all the video input output modes in the system and effectively give it 480i over component. For that reason, obviously 480i being line doubled, the Portta is better. For whatever reason, 720p, we're not really getting any of those issues that we had with the previous progressive-based demos. So the Portta, clearly a step up from the RetroTINK 2X Pro. For the 5X Pro, the two of them are really identical. Like, I don't really see much of anything to really be like, alright, here we go, that's obviously better, that's not better. They're really close. I like it quite a bit. And in like the moment-to-moment gameplay, we're not really having any of those significant issues that I was having in the other stuff. There's no weird pattern thing visible. There's no horrible motion problems. So if you had an Xbox and you wanted to hook it up to a modern TV and you're on a limited budget, I would recommend the Portta. This has worked fine. I have no real complaints. Set the Xbox to 720p or that, like that stuff, and you're good. Overall, happy with this. 720p Xbox footage, fine. Let's move on to PlayStation 3. Now, PlayStation 3 is an HDMI capable console, so obviously you should just use HDMI, like duh. But this is just for giggles, and I wanted to see more of like what it would do with those higher resolutions, because seeing it on Xbox made me wonder, okay, well, the higher we go for the source, the better it looks. I mean, like, that seems to be the trend here, mostly at least. So what console do I have that I can do 720 or even higher? And the answer is my PlayStation 3. So we're going to check out a couple things. We're going to check out 720p output from the console, and then we'll check out 1080i output from the console using the 5X Pro. In both instances set to 1080p fill. So let's see what that's going to look like. Okay, so I guess my theory of the higher the source resolution, the better the image would look, didn't really hold water at the end of the day. So 720p, they both look great, and I really have no complaints. The color is a little fuller on the Portta side. I think the darks are darker. Overall looks better, but either one, if it was all you had in front of you, you'd be very happy with. 1080p, things a little bit different. Neither one's very good. The console is actually set to 1080i output for the 5X Pro's footage because it can't accept a native 1080p signal, but it is set to 1080p going into the Portta. So the Portta only had to perform like the conversion itself and pass it through. No need for any up conversion or upscaling, and yet neither one looks great. They both look way better running 720p, which is funny because when I first put that together, I didn't do 720p. I just did the 1080 versions and was like, ugh, that's weird. And then I decided, you know what, the Xbox looked great running 720. I bet the same will be the case with the PlayStation, and sure enough, that's what happened. So what did we learn here today? Well, my two big takeaways are, if you're outputting 720, the Portta looks great. If you're outputting 480, it looks great, but there are some little flaws. There are like those lines in the image, and the overall jaggedness of things isn't perfect. If you're running 480i, I mean, I guess God help you, because that combing for Jak and Daxter was atrocious. I wouldn't even want to play it. But maybe it's a setting that I can enable or change. I'm all for it. Again, this device has a bit of a following, so I'd be curious to know if others had the same issues as me, or if maybe it's just a setting that can be enabled and you get much better output from it. Overall, I'm satisfied with what I saw with 480p output modes and 720p. 1080, not great, but at that point you can just use HDMI out of those consoles like the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3. Those are HDMI era consoles, not a big deal. The other big takeaway here was that the 2X Pro was surprisingly good for PlayStation 2. I was actually quite happy with that, and I'll probably be using the 2X Pro for any PS2 stuff I do going forward. Really cool, so that's interesting. Alright, the Portta HDMI converter, alright. It's got some peaks and valleys, whereas the AV to HDMI was actually mostly stable and fine for like whatever I gave it. The Porta's got some areas of opportunity there, although I'm willing to believe that it's a settings adjustment issue. And if some people have had similar issues or different ones, I'd like to hear about it. Let me know. I am genuinely curious. Otherwise, though, for certain things, it was fine. Good, even, for a lot of things. Xbox was good. I was very surprised and happy with what I saw for Xbox. So overall, nifty. And that kind of brings to a close these comparisons, at least for now, for RetroTINK versus other things. I do eventually want to get an open source scan converter and do some comparisons with that guy. I'll do that at some point down the road. I'm also planning a 2X Pro versus 5X Pro comparison, because I did that originally shortly after the 5X Pro came out, but since then I've gotten all new cabling, everything's running through Extron now, and the 5X Pro's gotten tons of firmware updates that have made it a more capable console, so I think it's worthy of revisiting that now and kind of seeing like the 5X Pro, you know, like a year or two later, where it's at now versus this. So we'll do all that, so be sure to subscribe to get notified of when that content comes. It also helps me grow the channel. I do appreciate you tuning in. Sorry for all my mistakes. Like I said, normally I'm filming in the morning. I'm filming at night right now. I had some schedule restrictions this week, so I'm probably going to make sure that I never do this again, because I've never had so many like flubs and redone takes as I have for this video, to be like totally transparent. It's not normal. I'm normally a 2 to 3 take kind of guy. It's been like 4 to 6 for a lot of these. So I'm just kind of going crazy right now. But thank you for tuning in. Hope the video was helpful, and have a great rest of your day.